Hello, I'm Serena, and welcome to this series, Introduction to Python. We will be using the Python programming language inside of Visual Studio. To make the content in this video more accessible, please click the closed caption or adjust the playback speed. We will be covering prompts versus no prompt, integer input, string functions, how to create a list using input, how to work with the list in Python. Let's get started. First, we're going to just review the concepts of the input statement. All right. So we're going to start off like we did before. We're just going to use a variable called name, and it's going to equal, let's just say this time we're going to use Amy Letterman. All right. Now, but what if we wanted to make sure that our user understood what we wanted from them? Because remember, hard coding a variable. This means that this variable will always stand for Amy Letterman until you change it somewhere in your code, which actually adds extra work to your coding efforts. So it is always better to use an input statement and tell the user what you want. So let's do that. So this is a prompt. The reason why they call it a prompt is because it's prompting your user to do something. It's telling them what type of input to put in. So what is your name? Me and my spaces. All right. So what is your name? Now, I want you to take a look at this because anything between two quotation marks, it literally prints out. So that means as soon as this input statement goes through, this question mark is going to be the last thing on that line. So when your user starts to type their name on the side, that means that this is going to be right behind it. You could always do something like this and maybe tell your user to type here, or you can do a /n, which sends them to the next line. So I know that you have seen /n before, but hey, let's get creative and we're going to do that to make ours look a little different. So we're going to do the basic print statement. Let's, like I did, hello. We're not going to put a space here because we need to use a comma because it automatically adds a space. So we're going to say hello name. And no space here. Sorry, me and my spaces today. Hello name and we're going to say welcome to my coding session or something. All right. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, notice the mixture of variables and strings. This is not stored inside of a variable. So to literally get that printed out, we need to put that in between quotation marks. Like I stated before, they could be single quotation marks or double quotation marks. And then we have double quotation marks. Remember this comma? The comma always adds a space. That's why in order for your code to look neat, you may want to take out any spaces where you already have a comma, okay? And then we have another variable, but now because we're going to a different content type, we're going to do another comma. And then now we have another string here. This space here does not print out in your output. Okay, so if you do add a space here, it looks cleaner because go ahead and print this. Now notice it says, what is your name? All right. So that's because that's the first input statement. This did not take an input statement because this is hard coding. All right, so let's go ahead and put in, I don't know, Cindy Lee. Oh, well, I guess it makes sense for me to spell Cindy, correct? All right, so Cindy Lee. All right, so it says, hello, Amy Letterman, because of our variable. And remember this space. So now we have a space and, right, Cindy Lee, because Cindy Lee is now stored inside of name two. This is hard coding assignment, and this is dynamic assignment. The reason why they call it dynamic is because it can be anything. Hundreds of thousands or even millions of people can use this program, and it will continually change as long as the input is different, right? And we know everybody is not named Amy and everybody is not named Cindy, right? So welcome to my coding session. Maybe the only thing that I probably would have wanted to do here is to possibly, let's say, if we did that and we took this off, and we added a plus sign. So now we'll have a period behind name two when this runs. So let's see what that looks like. All right, remember who were we? We were Cindy Lee. Wow, that looks better because now we have a period behind this variable and we didn't have to go and add it anywhere inside of our input statement. We just made sure to add this because we wanted to format it to look good. Not to mention, there's another way to format strings or your output. And basically, it's called an F string. So you would still use your print open and close parenthesis. All right, in this way, you go back in. The only thing you need is a F and a pair of quotation marks. So let's do this same thing. Hello, name. And then we go back out and we say, and, but we need these brackets here. Python is going to stop and actually fill in this information with what is stored inside of those variables. And we can put our period here without any extra anything. We can make a space. Welcome to my coding session, right? So now that we have this welcome to my coding session, we take off this extra space here and guess what? It's going to do the same thing that is up here, okay? All right, so let's throw this away so we can start from a clean slate. And we still need to Cindy Lee. So let's drag this over so we can see that. Wow, right? So the only thing we're missing is the comma. Guess what? You wouldn't have to go in and do too much, but add that comma, and the next time we run this, we're going to be asked where our name is. And this time we're going to still use Cindy, so it will still look how we did it before. So now we have the exact same sentences. Now you can see that there's formatting. So another way to actually format your output inside of Python. All right, so that is called, and it's also formatting. This is usually referenced as an F string. However, let's go ahead and do a dot format function. And what that looks like, guess what? You guessed it. Hello, comma. And then we're going to put a set of brackets there because we're going to tell Python later on what we want to put there. All right. And bracket. Welcome to my coding session, right? Yep. Guess what's needed? So it's called the format, right? And then we need this. We would go back inside of our parentheses and then we would tell them in what order we want our variables to show up. So let's mix it up a little bit here. All right. Because I just want to prove a point that this dot format Or this could have also been, you could have also transitioned this to be name 2 and this to be just name. But just for demonstration purposes, I want you to see something different so we know which line actually displayed what. So let's go back over here. We're going to throw this away and we're going to start again. And if there's someone named Cindy Lee and you're watching this, trust me, I just chose that name to work with. All right. So now with the dot format, we just changed the way that these variables were actually printing out. But all of these sentences, they say the same thing, but it's a different way of coding, right? So you have to do what works for you. If you don't understand the concept on line 12, do what's on line 10. If you don't understand what's on line 10, do what's on line 11. No problem at all. So the next thing that I want to show you, we're going to just get rid of this so it's not so many. Okay. Um, there's a way to even format your input when it's coming in. And what we're going to do, we're just going to say dot title, and that's going to be open close parentheses. Great. All right. So what this does is that it capitalizes the first letter of everything that you put inside of here. So let's say that I'm going to use Cindy again. All right, great. So what is your name? We're going to say that my name is Cindy K. Lee. Okay. Let's run this. All right, great. So now that this is actually printing out, did you notice that we put in all lowercase and we actually, every letter at the beginning of it printed out a capital letter. So that is one way of forcing your input to look how you want it to look. Now, you may ask yourself, why would you do this? Let's say that you're building a program that's going to save this inside of a database. You would want to force this to look how your database is expecting for that output to come, all right, to come in. So you can also do dot lower. Let's take title off. Let's do that. And then I'm just going to show you this, demonstrate this a little bit. All right, so this time we're gonna do Cindy K. Lee again. All of this came in like this, but Cindy is all lowercase because we forced everything to become lowercase. All right. So the next thing that we're gonna go over is integer input. So let's say that we have age here, and we just want to accept an integer, a whole number. We don't want any decimal points or anything. We still need to put an input statement in here. But what we're doing is that we're forcing the input to become an integer. Right? So let's go ahead and, oops, sorry. Great. Let's say you indicated indicated you are right. So that looks a little better. Well, at least the grammar is. So let's move forward. All right. So we're going to play this again. And what is your name? So we're still going to work with Cindy. Poor Cindy. Do you see how now, even if you leave this empty, no matter where you use input, it's going to only stop. It's not going to print out anything. It's not going to give the person any direction, but that wouldn't make a useful program because they wouldn't know what is actually coded on the back end and what you're trying to do. So let's throw that out. Let's put our prompt there. And it doesn't matter if it's integer or it's going to be a float, or that part of it doesn't matter. If this int part is not on it, it's going to assume that double quotations is around it, meaning that it will not come in as an integer, but a string. It invisibly has two quotation marks around it, be it single or double. All right. So but this part of it does not affect the fact that it's going to be an integer. I want you to think of this as a function that is forcing our input to be an integer. Okay. All right, great. So let's say, what is your age? All right. All right, Cindy. And what is your age? Now, I failed to put a space there. And this is what I was talking about as far as not having a space in your output. So let's just start over again. All right. So we're going to do Cindy Lee again. And now that we have a space here, it gives a cleaner look for your code when someone types in their age. All right. So now that is all that I have on that. So let's talk about, let's move forward with how would we change something that did not have this on it? All right. How would we change that variable? So when that variable comes in, you can wrap it inside. So if I wanted this to print, you could wrap this variable inside of int like this and print out age. The reason why you would know that or you could verify that it's actually turned into an integer is that we can perform some math. So we're going to stop this from coming in for a second, just so we can see if this works. Let's throw this away. Because remember, you cannot add a string. You cannot add a string and a number. Okay. So we're going to say 7. All right. And it says name2 isn't defined. So that just means that we need to block this out before trying to run this. Great. I apologize for that error. Great. All right. So again, I'm typing in Cindy. All right. So it actually performed the math. That's how you know that it's actually turned into an integer from us doing that. So again, let's go ahead and try age plus 10 this time. It's not going to work because you cannot perform math with a string. So it's telling you it's not an integer. It came in with a string, and you can only concatenate a string and not an integer. Okay. So let's go ahead and rewrap this inside an integer. All right, great. And then we're going to turn this age. We're going to concatenate exclamation point there. And then we're going to wrap this inside of a string like this. So now we can actually add an exclamation point to the end of this age. So I'm going to let it do it correctly the first time, and then we're going to go back and we're going to look at the error. Okay. Great. So let's put in our age. All right. So that formatted this integer into a string. So we can add an explanation to the end part of that. That may become useful when you're trying to do something like this. Because what if we didn't want that and we just wanted the explanation point to show up here? Okay. All right. So that's where that will become useful. Do I see you having to change integers into strings? Yes, sometimes. All right, so let's move on to the next concept, and that is going to be working with some string functions. All right, so I'm just going to get rid of 8 here for a second. All right. So we've already seen dot title, dot lore, um, in practice. All right. So we're going to also get rid of this because I don't see us using this because I want to make sure that we understand what's going on now. All right. So I'm just going to change this to name now, just plain name. Great. Because we don't have all of this anymore. Yep. Okay, great. So we also, when we're accepting input here, I need for you to know that there is a thing called dot split. So what dot split does is automatically turn everything that's coming in into a list. All right. So you may be wondering, what does that mean? We're going to go over there. All right. So nope, we're not going to split it there. I want to show you the correct way because I think some platforms that you run into will not accept the dot split at the end and actually let you work with it. So we're just going to store it inside of another variable. Okay, so I'm doing it this way because I do believe that the standards have changed. It may still work the other way, but recently I have been, it'll give you a not iterable variable. So what we're doing here is that we're taking name and we're going to split. When nothing is in between these two parentheses here, it automatically splits at the space. All right. And we're going to print my list. I want you to see what this looks like. All right, let's go. We're going to play this. This time we're going to work with William K. Johnson. All right. So it took every element that was typed in, divided by a space, put it inside of what they call a list. So this William here is index 0. This K here is index 1. This Johnson is, guess what? Yeah, you're right. Index 2. So indexing starts at 0, and they do call it string. You can also do a string. Some we'll go over that. But that is how you would turn your input that is put all on one line into 3 separate things. So how can we work with that? Well, remember I told you that William is index, oops, index, oh gosh, index 0. Yes. All right. So let's just take this sentence and we're just going to copy this and we're just going to paste it on the next line. So we want index 1 to print out. We want index 2 to print out. And let's go ahead and add, I don't know, some crazy stuff behind it, right? Because remember, anything in between 2 quotation marks is literally going to print out. But let's be reasonable here and let's be reasonable here. Let's say we want a comma. Okay. All right, great. So let's go ahead and we're going to throw this away. We're going to print this again, and we're going to still just use William K. Johnson for this example. Why does this look that way? Because we told it to. We told it to plus gibberish. And this is going to be plus this exclamation point, and then this is going to be plus this comma. Anything in between the quotation marks is literally going to print out. So what is this? I'm glad you asked. So this is this, So this is our list. So basically, you're telling Python, I want you to look in my list and I want to work with index 0, which is William, and I want you to add this gibberish behind it. And that's exactly what it did. So you're saying, okay, Python, I want to go to my list. I want to work with index 1, and I only want to pull and I want to add this exclamation point. And that's exactly what it did. And same thing. You told Python, I want you to reference my list. I want you to go to index 2, and I want you to put a comma behind it. And that's exactly what was performed. So let's say we want to go a step further. Let's say that we only want to grab this element. And if this element is the entire name William, what do you think that this would do? I'm going to give you a second to think about that, and then we'll come back to it. So I'm just going to wait 2 seconds. You're right. If you said that it's going to reference William and then reference the W, which is going to be the 0 index of William, you would be absolutely correct. All right, so let's take a look. So now we have W dot, K dot, and Johnson comma. For more academic support resources, please read this video's description. Thank you for watching. We hope to work with you soon.